After enduring all those restless nights, constant rejections, shattered plans, and people abandoning you in your darkest hours, you have finally reached the precipice of a genuine shift that isn't just false hope, but a profound certainty anchored in your core that you simply cannot justify to others, since they haven't endured your specific journey. They haven't experienced the heavy burden of being stuck, while the rest of society continuously moved ahead without you. They completely failed to grasp the immense toll it took to maintain your grip, when all logical signs pointed toward surrendering, yet you have managed to survive. And a profound element within your spirit, a peace that has been sleeping underneath layers of letdowns, is currently reviving. Exactly. It is coming alive. Because this approaching change represents far more than a simple breather. It is certainly not a mere token of appreciation or a trivial participation trophy for enduring. This upcoming blessing is the type of massive payoff that justifies every single second of your painful delay 100-fold, and you are already sensing it, right? That unfamiliar sense of weightlessness that has been subtly taking over recently. It is the distinct impression that your environment is fundamentally transforming, despite your outward reality remaining visually the same for now. You have shouldered an immense burden for a highly extended period. It goes beyond the standard struggles like financial stress, difficult interpersonal dynamics, a stagnant professional life, or ambitions that seem to be quietly dying. It involves a much more profound, hidden agony of realizing you were destined for greatness while remaining utterly incapable of grasping it. It is the sheer fatigue of trying to justify your choices to individuals fundamentally incapable of comprehending your vision. The isolation, truly, the profound isolation of navigating a unique journey that absolutely no one in your vicinity shares. Yes, that specific deep-seated solitude. Honestly, the most painful aspect was rarely the actual hardship. The true pain was observing peers advancing gracefully while you remained entirely stuck in place. It was never about bitter envy regarding their career leaps, their thriving romances, their sudden victories, or their newfound applause. It was simply the agony of witnessing them attain the precise blessings you desperately sought, all while you remained stuck in purgatory, questioning if the universe had completely misplaced your destiny or entirely erased you from memory. That emotional pain is entirely valid. It is not irrational anxiety. It does not indicate a shortage of spiritual trust. It is simply the raw, genuine reaction of a normal person pushed far past the limits of normal human endurance. Exactly. And you have undoubtedly interrogated yourself repeatedly during the most difficult, quietest moments of your evenings. What is fundamentally broken inside of me? Why do my peers achieve success so effortlessly, while I must painfully claw my way toward the tiniest bit of progress? Why does my steadfast waiting feel identical to a harsh penalty? Why does my absolute resilience feel exactly like being completely abandoned? These specific doubts have bounced around your brain so frequently that they morphed into a constant, subtle hum you barely even notice today. However, those thoughts have constantly eroded your confidence, leading you to suspect that your critics might have been entirely correct about your wasted efforts. Perhaps your unwavering belief was actually just pure stupidity. Perhaps you truly needed to lower your standards exactly like the masses did. Perhaps you needed to cheat the system, skip the hard steps, and participate in life's cynical routines, just like the rest of society does. Yet here is the crucial reality that others failed to mention. During the absolute hardest parts of your journey, when you appeared immobilized, and when the public assumed you were completely stagnant and unproductive, a profound transformation was occurring deep beneath the soil where public eyes could not penetrate. Absolutely no one could witness it. Your apparent lack of movement was absolutely never a void. That intense quietness never equated to genuine abandonment. What perfectly resembled a total standstill was actually the most critical developmental phase of your earthly existence, quietly unfolding in a completely private realm. Because this is the absolute truth regarding authentic evolution. It rarely occurs on a public stage. It never takes place while a massive audience applauds your immediate victories. It transpires in the pitch-black soil where invisible foundations expand, and you have actively been developing incredibly profound foundations. These are the types of foundations that resist being easily yanked free when chaotic gales arrive. They are the foundations that secure you so aggressively that absolutely no tempest, regardless of its ferocity, can ever tear you down. You have simply been experiencing an era of vital training, which was never a penalty nor a desertion, but purely readiness training. Reflect deeply on this reality. Allow that truth to fully settle within your mind. And that intense training phase has officially concluded. Every individual hardship you survived, including all the backstabbing, the repeated rejections, and the agonizing urges to surrender, collaboratively forged a resilience inside you that was impossible to cultivate otherwise. Absolutely. And none of it was a cosmic penalty. Those individuals who abandoned your side were entirely unequipped to enter your upcoming destiny, just as those cancelled opportunities were severely inadequate for your true calling, and those maddening postponements that sparked immense doubt were actually beneficial. Those frustrating hold-ups effectively shielded you from rushing prematurely into massive responsibilities you were vastly underprepared to handle. You naturally failed to recognize this dynamic at the time. Naturally, it was impossible to comprehend. Absolutely no person can successfully interpret the grand architectural plans while actively standing inside the chaotic building zone. However, presently, you are poised on the brink of the exact destiny that has patiently awaited your arrival. And this impending reality is vastly greater than a tiny shred of comfort. It is far from a trivial blessing or a marginal upgrade to your routine. This incoming wave is an absolute, fundamental overturning and massive reset of your entire understanding regarding your existence, your trajectory, and your ultimate potential. The massive deficit that has constantly shadowed you is on the verge of being erased through completely unimaginable avenues. Those toxic connections that merely left you feeling drained and entirely exploited are finished. You are practically guaranteed to be encircled by allies who genuinely recognize your worth, who truly value your presence, who understand your unique frequency, and who never demand that you minimize your personality, justify your actions, or continually validate your existence. You will never again have to constantly earn standard human decency regarding that professional path that seemed completely stagnant and hopeless. You are on the precipice of entering a role that deeply nourishes your soul so flawlessly that you will be baffled as to why you previously forced yourself to to endure those unfulfilling alternatives. However, we must openly acknowledge a crucial reality here. Yes, that agonizing holding pattern profoundly altered your character. That transformation was absolutely mandatory. You are fundamentally a different individual today than you were at the beginning of this ordeal, and we should express immense gratitude for that shift, as your former self was wildly unequipped to manage your upcoming blessings. That past iteration of yourself who constantly craved external praise, who required universal comprehension from peers, and who was terrified of being misjudged. That older identity would have been completely crushed under the sheer magnitude of the blessings about to be handed to you. Truly, placed right into your hands, that extended delay completely peeled away those toxic dependencies. It thoroughly incinerated your desperate craving for external applause. It entirely melted away your unhealthy reliance on the judgments of outsiders. It compelled you to unearth a much more profound anchor within your own spirit. You had to discover internal stability to grip firmly while your outside reality was violently crumbling, and you successfully located it. Exactly. That internal discovery is the specific reason you have survived until now. You uncovered an internal resource that remained completely untouchable, regardless of the chaos erupting in your immediate environment. That exact foundation, that fiercely unmovable core, is the specific element it is slated for massive compensation. This compensation isn't happening because you exhibited flawless morality or never doubted, but strictly because you absolutely refused to surrender. Because during moments when your entire being screamed to flee, you remained firmly planted. When the surrounding chorus demanded your resignation, you continued marching forward. When the simplest worldly option was embracing intense resentment, adopting pure cynicism, and building massive walls to permanently shield your heart from future pain, you actively selected an alternate route. You actively elected to remain vulnerable, even when maintaining that vulnerability was downright horrifying. You actively elected to maintain your faith, even when that faith appeared completely absurd to logic. You actively elected to continuously participate, even when it appeared as though absolutely no one saw you or valued your presence. But they definitely saw your efforts. They absolutely witnessed your resilience. Every solitary second of your struggle was meticulously documented. Every solitary teardrop shed in isolation, and every quiet plea you muttered when you completely lacked the physical energy to voice your pain out loud. Every instance where you prioritized high moral character over the simple escape route was steadily accumulating, not acting as a ledger of your defeats or hardships, but rather acting as a massive deposit toward your impending future. Consider the situation through this specific lens. Whenever you remained silent, rather than fiercely justifying your actions, you essentially added funds to your destiny. Whenever you actively granted grace, rather than clinging tightly to resentments, you successfully added funds to your destiny. A true investment. Whenever you assisted another human being, despite feeling completely depleted yourself, you successfully added funds to your destiny. Whenever you expressed gratitude amidst your suffering, whenever you stood tall after a brutal defeat, and whenever you prioritized optimism over bleakness, it was continually compounding in your favor. And currently, that cosmic bank balance has reached maximum capacity. The investment has fully ripened. It is thoroughly prepared for a massive payout that will completely stun every individual who previously dismissed your potential. Those specific skeptics who questioned your sanity, who claimed you were squandering your life, and who chuckled at your devotion while ridiculing your steadfast waiting. Those individuals are on the verge of witnessing a reality that will completely strip away their ability to speak. This won't happen because you plan to aggressively gloat about your victory to them. Absolutely not, as you no longer require that kind of shallow validation. That type of behavior contradicts your true character. It simply does not reflect your current identity. The intense trials you endured have completely incinerated any immature desire for vengeance from your soul. However, they will inevitably witness your triumph, regardless of your silence. They will be front-row spectators to your live transformation. They will be entirely compelled to admit that your past claims were entirely factual, that your mind was completely sound, that your beliefs were never childish, and that you were simply leagues ahead of the crowd, navigating a specialized route that remained invisible to their eyes. This is precisely how their impending reality will manifest. It extends far beyond mere financial gain, although wealth certainly plays a role. Indeed, it is far more profound than just a sudden fleeting burst of superficial victory. It represents an absolute holistic compensation covering the entirety of your earthly existence. Those specific tasks that formerly required agonizing effort are on the verge of becoming incredibly effortless. Those exact opportunities that repeatedly rejected your advances will soon swing wide open prior to you even requesting entry. Those specific individuals who were meant to champion your cause but ultimately stabbed you in the back are currently slated for replacement. You absolutely do not require their apologies to grant them pardon. They will be swapped out for genuine allies who fiercely protect your interests. That heavy nervous tension residing in your heart, that perpetual subtle vibration of panic that has accompanied you for such an extended duration that you lost all memory of true mental tranquility. It is genuinely preparing to evaporate. It will not merely pause momentarily to give you a short break. It is going to genuinely vanish forever. Furthermore, this next element might currently seem entirely implausible due to the sheer volume of heartbreak you have endured. However, true gladness is making its return. Genuine, unadulterated gladness. This is vastly different from that artificial cheerfulness you have been constantly projecting, merely to prevent others from stressing over your well-being. It is vastly different from that fleeting comfort you experience when a tiny victory occurs, only for tragedy to immediately steal it away shortly after. Absolutely not. I am referring to a profound, enduring, unbreakable euphoria that remains entirely disconnected from the shifting winds of your external situations. Yes, a euphoria that resides deep within your spirit forever. It is the specific variety of peace stemming from the absolute certainty that your current location and actions perfectly align with your ultimate destiny. It happens while you are flanked by the absolute perfect companions. It is the specific variety of energy that makes you eager to jump out of your sheets each dawn. Exactly. It is the specific variety of lightness that provokes spontaneous, unprompted chuckling. It is the specific variety of spark that infuses your veins with a vibrancy you have not experienced in over a decade. You have been operating on absolute emptiness for such an extended era that the concept of genuine flourishing has completely left your memory. You lost all recollection of possessing physical vitality, possessing fierce drive, and feeling genuine anticipation for tomorrow, rather than sheer terror. Truly, that magnificent spark is returning to you. Step by step, fragment by fragment, your spirit is actively undergoing a massive reconstruction, a full reconstruction, and it is not merely being repaired to its original state, but rather amplified by a factor of 100. Every single fraction of tranquility that the world unjustly hijacked from your life is currently being refunded alongside heavy dividends, massive dividends. Every single drop of happiness that the struggle siphoned away is rapidly being funneled directly back into your soul until you simply cannot contain the surplus. Every single bond that completely depleted your energy and left you barren is currently being swapped for powerful alliances that genuinely feed your soul. Every single monetary deficit is actively being balanced by a wave of prosperity that absolutely defies standard logical accounting. This is definitely not just naive optimism. This has nothing to do with trendy self-help mantras, law of attraction routines, or similar superficial concepts. This represents a tangible reality, a massive turning point that is already actively progressing regardless of your current visual confirmation. The grand transition has formally begun. You have definitely noticed it. You have absolutely sensed its arrival, correct? It is that bizarre intuition indicating a massive foundational shift, despite your visual reality remaining currently unaltered. It is that subtle but undeniable self-assurance steadily expanding inside your chest, despite your total inability to logically justify its presence. That exact intuition serves as your hard proof. Yes, that is the literal confirmation that your reality is actively transforming. Your innermost being is entirely aware of this shift. Your physical form intuitively recognizes the approaching breakthrough, even while your logical brain struggles to fully comprehend the mechanics, and your innermost being is completely accurate. The upcoming cluster of weeks will rapidly develop in a manner that will completely steal your oxygen. This will not happen because reality will magically transform into an utter utopia overnight. The universe does not operate with such flawed simplicity. Regrettably, existence refuses to function in that manner, which is a truth you fully grasp. Rather, it will happen because you will finally begin witnessing the beautiful results of your immense suffering, allowing you to gradually assemble the chaotic puzzle and understand that absolutely zero tears were shed in vain. The agony, the endless delays, the bitter isolation, and the maddening uncertainty all possessed immense value. Every solitary second of suffering functioned to fulfill a grand objective that remained completely invisible to you in the past. However, that grand objective is rapidly transitioning into undeniable clarity right this moment. And we need to clarify this concept regarding the hundredfold return, whenever a variable is legitimately magnified 100 times over. People often misunderstand this concept. It absolutely does not represent a tiny, marginal addition. It is certainly not a slow, step-by-step upgrade to your baseline. It is an absolute, fundamental metamorphosis of your reality. It acts as an entire, drastic shift in your foundational state of being. It closely mirrors the massive leap from a tiny flickering matchstick to a raging inferno, or from a faint murmur to a deafening scream. That exact level of magnitude is heading your way. The specific blessings that were stripped from your hands will absolutely return in vastly greater quantities. The massive chunks of time you sacrifice to endless patience will rapidly condense into hyperspeed progress that thoroughly compensates for every lost tick of the clock. The interpersonal bonds that previously crumbled will be swapped for dynamic partnerships of incredibly higher quality. You will genuinely question why you previously accepted such miserable scraps from others. Regarding your finances, indeed, the wealth that previously vanished from your grasp will rapidly flood back via powerful rivers that completely refuse to empty. The deep tranquility that was violently robbed from your mind will swiftly return, manifesting as an impregnable castle that absolutely no outside force can ever penetrate. You currently hover at the entrance of a profound reality that the vast majority of society will absolutely never taste. This exclusivity does not stem from a lack of inherent human value, but rather because the masses completely fail to survive the agonizing purgatory of delay. The masses simply throw in the towel far too prematurely. They tragically abandon their posts mere moments before the massive victory arrives. They allow the heavy shadows to brainwash them into believing that the sun has been permanently extinguished. However, you fiercely refused to yield. You maintained your position, and strictly due to your stubborn resilience, you have earned the absolute privilege of witnessing the incredible harvest waiting just beyond your massive wall of suffering. Therefore, here is a highly critical instruction. Begin preparing yourself immediately. Do not prepare with a panicked, nervous, deeply doubtful energy, but rather with a tranquil, unshakable certainty that victory is already a guaranteed fact. Actively remove the clutter from your daily existence. Carve out a wide landing pad for your upcoming blessings. Exactly. And this mandate goes vastly beyond simply tidying your physical environment, although that is helpful. You certainly require environmental neatness, yet you desperately need vast mental and spiritual bandwidth above all else. Fully release those toxic, outdated narratives you have constantly recited regarding your personal identity and your ultimate ceiling of potential. Fully discard those heavy defensive personas you actively assumed throughout your brutal era of delay. The persona of the perpetual grinder, the tragic martyr, and the perpetually unlucky individual must be completely retired. Those specific labels absolutely do not define your current self in any capacity. You are fundamentally separate from your past traumas. Those labels were genuinely never your true essence to begin with. They were merely temporary defenses that temporarily swallowed you whole. They were strictly protective theatrical masks you were forced to utilize for basic survival. Your authentic, brilliant core is on the verge of manifesting in avenues that will completely shock the masses and completely shock your own mind, simply because you possess zero comprehension of your true upper limits. You have been intensely preoccupied with merely keeping your head above water. True, this sheer survival mode entirely robbed you of the opportunity to explore the magnificent person you evolve into when you are genuinely prospering. You are on the precipice of finally discovering that truth. And the revelation is going to be utterly breathtaking. Absolutely cease stressing over the specific logistical mechanics of your upcoming breakthrough. Handling those fine details is far above your pay grade. Rather, your sole responsibility is to remain deeply receptive, remain actively prepared, and remain fiercely appreciative. Your only duty is to continuously radiate brilliance, to continuously remain present, and to continuously embody the upgraded soul you morphed into during the fire. That specific soul is significantly more intelligent, noticeably more resilient, infinitely more empathetic, and substantially harder to mentally destabilize. Your core assignment is to completely believe that this approaching tide is precisely the medicine your soul requires, arriving at the exact optimal millisecond, which requires you to entirely surrender your obsession with micromanaging the universe's timeline. The massive payout heading in your direction is going to feel so incredibly appropriate, so flawlessly scheduled, and so perfectly tailored to your deepest historical voids that you will inevitably review your horrific past and experience zero emotions besides sheer thankfulness. This gratitude will certainly not exist because the agony was inherently pleasant. It was absolutely horrendous. It truly was awful. This gratitude will certainly not exist because the endless stalling was an enjoyable game. Absolutely not, as the stalling was downright savage. The process was relentlessly savage, but your gratitude will stem strictly from the undeniable truth that the sheer savagery perfectly guided you to your exact upcoming paradise. And that specific destination, that exact promised land you are rapidly approaching at this very second, is vastly superior to any petty dream your limited human brain could possibly invent. Honestly, you have completely paid the price for this massive victory. You genuinely secured it. You secured it not via a flawless performance nor via maintaining a perfect facade, but strictly via consistently participating, strictly via holding your ground, and strictly via outright rejecting surrender, even when quitting appeared to be the absolute most attractive option available on Earth. You secured it via continuously prioritizing radical optimism over crushing defeat, time after time. You did this even when that radical optimism felt like utter clownish behavior. You secured it